ash rain, blazing heat, and no sign of life for a long way. But beneath the hostile surface, shrouded in toxic gases and covered in molten rock, this planet developed into one of the most important economic centers in the galaxy. Welcome to Sullust. The landscape of Solest was characterized by volcanic rock as far as the eye could see. The rocky surface was dry and lifeless. Where rocks were not covered in ash and dust, they presented their dangerously sharp edges to the world. Majestic mountains loomed in the distance. Some of them spewed lava, which flowed down in unstoppable streams and destroyed everything in its path. Others lay dormant, waiting for the magma to make its way through the depths. Slowly, it flowed through cracks in the rock or built up pressure until it tore the mountain apart in a massive eruption. These forces of nature constantly released enormous amounts of ash into the atmosphere. It was not uncommon for large parts of the planet to be shrouded in thick clouds of ash that blocked the sunlight for weeks at a time. These clouds bathed everything below them in a twilight that was only illuminated by the glowing red magma streams that crisscrossed the landscape. In many regions, countless cracks in the surface also allowed gases to be released constantly. Without protection, breathing was painful, but even with special gas masks, the high temperatures made taking even a few steps an unpleasant experience. There were only a few stable bodies of water on the surface of Solest, mixed with ash and other residues of volcanic activity and saturated with toxic gases. These seas became thick and muddy. The underground was crisscrossed by caves and tunnel systems, cooled magma chambers of all sizes through which once hot lava had made its way upwards. Here, below the hot surface, liquid water collected in small pools. Cool, moist air filled the network of caves, and life thrived in underground oases around the water. Algae and simple plants filtered the toxic gases from the air and created a breathable atmosphere in the cave systems. The Sullust, a snake-like life form that lived in the caves of Solest, could sense even the smallest traces of poisonous gases in the air with their specialized sensory organs. Highly sensitive to these gases, they avoided environments with poorly breathable air. Before technology took over these tasks, the Sullust were considered the key to identifying caves with breathable air. When volcanic activity caused an intrusion of toxic gases, they were usually the first to notice and flee, acting as a kind of early warning system. Over time, some species adapted to the harsh life on the surface. Most of them usually stayed close to the entrances to the cave systems, but some others developed extraordinary ways to adapt to the volcanic landscape of the planet. The Ash Angel was a flying creature that roamed the skies of Solest. Their digestive system was capable of extracting nutrients from the ash they ate, requiring only small amounts of water from time to time. This allowed them to spread all over the planet's surface and to live a life completely independent from the cave biospheres. Solest was home to the explorative and outgoing sentient species of the Solisten. These black-eyed near-humans lived in the caves below the planet's surface since their very early history. To protect themselves from the poisonous atmosphere, They gathered in family clans and explored the underground to find food and shelter. The Solistans developed exceptional eyesight and an outstanding sense of direction to find their ways in the mazes of tunnels. When a clan discovered a suitable cave with stable living conditions, they often settled there and founded a village to live in. As their population grew, the Solistans dug into the rock to expand the caves. Underground villages became cities and were inhabited by many family clans. But a constant danger lurked behind the walls of volcanic rock that surrounded the settlements. The planet's unpredictable volcanism often led to violent lava eruptions that would fill the caves with molten rock in minutes, or catastrophic cave-ins that buried entire cities. Over time, however, the inventive Solistans developed technologies to control and redirect lava flows to save their cities. They would even use the power of the volcanic activity and heat of the lava to power their society. This abundance of energy heralded a period of rapid technological development and economic growth on the planet. The underground cities developed into gigantic metropolises, including gems such as Pyringiesi, Fulusub, and the capital Bailuran, where millions of Solistan had their home. Magma flows from the depths of the planet's core constantly transported mineral-rich material towards the surface. As a result, Solest was blessed with a great wealth of natural resources, which further boosted economic development. After developing hyperspace technologies, Solest joined the Galactic Republic around 5,500 years before the Battle of Yavin. Around the same time, the Soros Corporation was founded, a company that would soon become synonymous with the economic success of the planet. Soros would focus on mining and resource processing, but later diversify and grow rapidly into other branches. The Solistans were one of the main contributors to the exploration of the Rima trade route, a hyperspace lane that stretched from the galactic core to strategically important worlds in the middle and outer rim. This connection opened up many opportunities for the Solistans to export their goods into the larger galaxy. They quickly became famous for their propulsion and droid technology. Some of the most successful exports of Sorosub included the V-35 Courier and the X-34 Landspeeder, a durable but relatively cheap civilian repulsor lift speeder that would become a common sight on many worlds across the Republic. Solest soon became one of the most important worlds for the Republic's economy and trade. This made the planet a target for enemies of the Republic, as was the case shortly before the end of the Great Sith War, some 4,000 years before the Battle of Yavin. The Krath, a secret society whose founders had been turned to the dark side by the spirit of an ancient Dark Lord of the Sith, had turned their attention to Sullust. Records of this conflict are sparse, which is why we can only speculate about the intensity of the battles between the Karth and the Republic forces. During the Great Galactic War between the Republic and the Sith Empire around 300 years later, Solest once again became a target. A crime lord betrayed Republic forces and allowed the Sith Empire to take the upper hand on the planet. Republic forces were defeated and forced to retreat. A Jedi Knight and many Republic soldiers were captured by the Sith Empire and imprisoned during the following Galactic Cold War. Solest, however, would be returned to Republic's control with the Treaty of Coruscant. More than 1,000 years of peace followed on the planet until the Brotherhood of Darkness under the Sith Lord Khan took power over what was left of the Sith Empire. During Khan's campaign to plunge the Republic into chaos, the Sith and Republic armies clashed on Solest. The destruction of vital facilities on the planet damaged the Republic's economic strength. However, This and other victories could not avert the Brotherhood's downfall just 2 years later, caused by their own hands when they lost control of an experimental weapon. Soros had become a major player in galactic trade and a key member of the Commerce Guild, a trade conglomerate and powerhouse of the Republic's economy. Soros employed almost half of Solest's population. They had established great academic institutions on Sullust to train their employees and even built a pod racing track running through one of their facilities. Over time, the decisions of Soros's leadership became synonymous with planetary politics and Solist's governing body. The Solisten Council lost more and more power, so much so that in the years before the Clone Wars, the president of Soros was also the representative of Solest in the Republic Senate. With the rise of the separatist movement, the Commerce Guild, and thus Soros, began to play an important part in the upcoming war effort. Although Solest served as an important base for Republic forces in the early months of the war, it eventually sided with the Confederacy of Independent Systems before the end of the first year of the Clone Wars. Less than a month later, an invasion force failed to recapture the planet and secure vital production capacities for the Republic. Even though they were unable to conquer Solest, the Republic managed to take control of important nearby systems. This enabled them to launch another attack on Solest a year later. The Confederate and Republic fleets fought in orbit around the planet. Both sides suffered heavy losses. Ultimately, the battle was won by the Republic after an intrigue in the Confederation leadership led to parts of the fleet turning against each other. The Republic seized control of the planet and Soros leadership was replaced with much more Republic-friendly individuals. As the war progressed, however, the Republic gradually lost influence on the planet and support for the Confederacy resumed. With the end of the Clone Wars and the reorganization of the Republic into the Galactic Empire, Soros sided with the New Order. Not every Solisten agreed with the unconditional support of the Empire, but the majority was looking forward to enjoy some peace after the Clone Wars had brought destruction to Solest on more than one occasion. 17 years later, Soros's leadership, with support of the Empire, held a proclamation that ultimately dissolved the Solisten Council and placed the planet completely under their control. This was a reaction to the sympathy with the Rebel Alliance and their fight against the Empire, which had grown in the planet's population over the years. With the takeover of the government by Soros, all political voices were silenced. In response to this illegal act, former politicians and activists began to organize themselves and went into hiding. The Solisten resistance staged multiple attacks against Soros facilities and assets. For protection against the resistance, the Solisten Home Guard was established. However, as all the members of the Home Guard were native Solistans who were not happy with the situation themselves, they proved to be extremely ineffective in the fight against the resistance. They were able to overthrow Soros' leadership and installed a new government that secretly sympathized with the rebellion. In the following year, the Empire intervened. In response to the increased rebel activity on Solest and in neighboring systems, an offensive campaign called Operation Strike Fear was launched. A group of Solistans was kidnapped, interrogated, and tortured to force Solest to align with the Imperial order again. In a special operation, rebel forces successfully rescued the kidnapped Solistans. This was followed by a meeting between the Sullust government and rebel high command to negotiate the conditions of Solest joining the rebellion against the Empire. During the meeting, however, an Imperial Star Destroyer arrived and launched an attack on the planet. The leader of the Solisten government was kidnapped during this attack, but rebel forces again launched a successful rescue mission. The Solisten resistance later started to secretly support the rebel alliance, even though the Empire had established a strong presence on the planet. Months after the destruction of the first Death Star at the Battle of Yavin, a rebel strike force attacked an important energy production facility on Sullust. This facility appeared to be vital to the Imperial presence on the planet. It turned out, however, that this was a distraction planned by the Empire to keep the rebels busy, while Imperial forces launched an attack on rebel assets on another planet. In return, the Rebel Alliance would use Solest as a staging point for their fleet before the attack on the second Death Star on Endor about 3 years later. The primary goal of this attack was to attract the attention of the Imperial forces and lure fleet elements away from Endor. In the end, however, the rebels succeeded in freeing the planet from Imperial control, in part because the Imperial fleet refused to be lured into the trap and did not send reinforcements. After the major win against the Empire and the destruction of the second Death Star, Solest was one of the first worlds to officially join the Rebel Alliance and later became a founding member of the New Republic. The Solisten Council was re-established as the governing body on Solest. Soros, now under the control of rebel sympathizers, from then on supported the fight against the remains of the Empire with military equipment and technology. However, the fighting soon returned to Solest. Only 1 year later, an Imperial faction from a neighboring sector, called the Eriadu Authority, launched an attack on the planet and tried to conquer it. With Soros now manufacturing military equipment for the New Republic, the defense fleet on Solest, though ill-prepared, was able to defeat the invaders. The New Republic took advantage of this victory and launched a campaign against the Eriadu Authority, which was defeated after a few battles in quick succession. Times of peace followed until the Yuzan Vong invaded the galaxy around 20 years later. Solest itself was not attacked, but had to be prepared for an attack all the time over the almost 5 years of conflict. At the same time, the devastation of hundreds of planets created a refugee crisis that Solest struggled to manage. Another 100 years later, with the end of the Sith Imperial War that had engulfed the galaxy for 3 years, the Galactic Empire under Darth Krayt took control over the planet. Soros, from that point on, was forced to use almost all their production capacities to provide the Empire with military equipment. And so, resistance arose once again in the caves beneath the volcanic surface of Sullust.